All right, this is Unit 8, Formative 1, Video 1. We're going to factor out a GCF. So remember, GCF is a greatest common factor. So it's a number or a variable, the largest one that'll go into both terms. So if we look here at our 6 and our 15, we want the largest number that'll go into both of those, and that's a 3. Okay. Now if we look, 6m, this one has a variable, but this one doesn't. So they both don't have it in common, so you can't factor it out, right? So that's where this 3 comes from. It's what they both have in common are the GCF, and then these is dividing. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. We have the m left over, and then 15 divided by 3 is 5, right? So this is what factoring a GCF out is. All right, let's look at the first one. So we have 12y squared minus 4y. So the largest number that'll go into both the 12 and the 4 is a 4. Okay, so we know that is going to be outside our parentheses. Now, you need to look at the variables and see what they have in common. The first term has 2 y's, and this one only has 1. Okay, so you're always going to take the minimum exponent out, okay, which would be the 1. So we are going to factor out 4y to the first. Okay, so whatever you factor out, so whatever is here, has to be on both, is going to go outside the parentheses. Okay, and then what goes inside the parentheses is just your division. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay, and then we have y to the second divided by y to the first. Remember, we're subtracting exponents, is y to the first. Okay, and then we have negative 4 divided by negative 4, which is a negative 1, and then my y's cancel. Okay, so that's my answer. Now, if you want to double check, you can always distribute. So basically what we're doing is the reverse of distributing, so we can check our work. So now let's go ahead and check it real fast. So 4y times 3y is 12y to the second, and then 4y times negative 1 is negative 4y. And that is my original problem, so I know I did it correctly. All right, next one. Okay, so this one has a leading negative. So one thing you're going to learn is we can't have leading negatives from here on out. So I need to get rid of the leading negative. So I know I need to divide by a negative. Okay, that's how we're going to get rid of a leading negative. Now this is a negative 1, 3, and negative 7. So there is not a single number that will go into all 3 of those. So I am going to just be dividing by negative 1. Okay, now let's look at the variables. This has x squared, this has x, and this does not have an x. So we cannot factor out an x. Okay, they all have to have it in order to factor it out. So on this one, the only thing we're factoring out is a negative 1. Okay, so we're going to divide. So negative 1 divided by negative 1 is a positive 1x squared. 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3x. And then negative 7 divided by negative 1 is a positive 7. And now if I distribute, check my work. Negative 1 times x squared is negative 1x squared. Negative 1 times negative 3x is a positive 3x. And negative 1 times 7 is a negative 7. And that is our original problem, so we know we did it correctly. All right, next one. Okay, so we have 16, 8, and 24. Largest number that'll go into all of those is 8. Okay. Now I'm going to look at my variables. So I have x to the second, I have x, and I don't have an x here. So we can't factor out any x's. So let's look at the y's. I have y to the fourth, y to the first, and y to the second. So you're going to take, they all have y's, so you're going to take the lowest exponent of y out, which is y to the first. Okay, and that gets divided by all the terms. Okay, now remember this goes outside. Now we're just going to divide. 16 divided by 8 is 2. X to the second, that just is going to come down. And I have y to the fourth divided by y to the first, which is y to the third. Okay. Now I have negative 8 divided by 8, which is negative 1. My x stays, and then my y's cancel. Okay, that one's done. All right, now we have 24 divided by 8, which is 3. Okay, and we don't have any x's, but I have y to the second over y to the first, which leaves me y to the first. All right, So this is my answer, but let's go ahead and double check it. So I have 8 times 2, which is 16. Then I have x to the second, y to the fourth. And then I have 8y times negative 1x, which is negative 8xy. And then I have 8y times 3y, which 8 times 3 is 24, and I have y to the second. Okay, if we look, that is exactly what we had in the original problem. All right, so number 4, we have negative 6x to the third plus 3x squared minus x. Remember, this is a 1x if you need to put that there. Okay, so the first thing I need to recognize is the fact that it's a leading negative, so you know you're going to factor out a negative. Okay, so let's take a look at the numbers. I have 6, a negative 6, a 3, and a negative 1. There's no number that'll go into all of those, so I know the number I'm going to factor out is a negative 1. Okay. Next thing we need to look at is our variables. So we have x to the third, x to the second, and x to the first. You're going to take out the lowest exponent, so I'm going to factor out an x to the first. Okay. Now that number, the one that's under there, goes outside your parentheses, and now it's a division problem. So you have negative 6x to the third divided by negative 1x. So negative 6 divided by 1 is a positive 6. And then x to the third divided by x is x to the second. Remember, it's division, so you're subtracting exponents. Next one is 3 divided by negative 1, which is negative 3. And you have x to the second divided by x to the first. Subtract your exponents, you get x to the first. And then you have negative 1 divided by negative 1, which is a positive 1. And then x divided by x, those cancel. And then there's your answer.